The boy owned nothing. No workshop, no land, no family name that opened doors, no inheritance waiting for him, and no one in Florence who owed him a favor. He had a tunic, a pair of worn shoes, and a place to sleep that belonged to someone else. By every measure the city used to weigh a man, he had nothing at all to begin with. And everywhere he turned, he heard the same sentence repeated like scripture. First, you must have money to make money. The tired men in the tavern said it. The workers said it while they waited for a season that never came. Even the kind ones said it gently, as a way of explaining why he should not hope for much. And the boy noticed something about that sentence, something that troubled him deeply. It was not offered as advice. It was offered as permission. Permission to stop, to wait, to never begin. Half of Florence had built its entire life on that one sentence, and the sentence had kept every one of them exactly where they were. So the boy went looking for the men who had started with nothing and ended with something. There were not many, but there were some, and not one of them had begun with capital. Every single one of them had begun by trading something they already owned. That was the discovery that changed his life. The men who rose from nothing were not given a starting fortune. They were simply the ones who recognized that they were never actually empty-handed to begin with. Because a man with no money is not a man with no assets. He is a man with 4 things that appear on no ledger, in no inventory, in no counting house in Florence. 4 assets so quiet and so ordinary that nearly everyone spends them carelessly, every day, without ever once realizing they were the raw material of a fortune. You have them right now. You had them yesterday, and you spent most of them on nothing. This is not a lesson about earning more. You may not be able to earn more this month or this year, and pretending otherwise would be a lie. This is a lesson about recognizing what is already in your hands. Because wealth from nothing has never begun with money. It has always begun with conversion. Something you already own turned deliberately into something that compounds. So before we go further, be honest with yourself about one thing. Have you been waiting to begin? Waiting for the extra money, the better job, the right moment, the season when things finally settle? Because that waiting is not caution. It is the sentence that half of Florence died believing. The boy stopped waiting. He took inventory of what he actually possessed, and the first asset, the most valuable of the 4, is the one you throw away every single day without noticing. The first asset is the one thing Florence handed out with perfect fairness. The boy noticed that the wealthiest banker in the city and the poorest porter at the gate woke to exactly the same allowance, the hours of a single day. No man received more. No fortune could purchase an extra one. In a city built entirely on inequality, this was the only thing distributed evenly, and it was the only thing almost everyone treated as worthless. The porter sold his hours cheaply, and the few that remained at the end of the day, he spent as though they had no value at all. In the tavern, in complaint, in the long comfortable talk about how a man like him could never rise. He was not lazy. He worked harder than the banker, but every hour he owned was either sold or discarded, and so nothing ever accumulated. Here is the first asset and the first rule of building from nothing. Before you sell your hours, invest a few of them. Not many. The boy was not foolish enough to believe a man with no money could simply stop working. 1 hour before the city woke, 1 hour after it slept. Hours spent not earning today, but building something that earns later. Learning, making, sharpening, creating. These are the only hours in a poor man's life that belong entirely to him, and they are the only capital in the world that cannot be taxed, seized, or taken by any authority. The banker could buy nearly anything in Florence. He could not buy an hour that had already passed. The second asset surprised the boy, because for years he had believed it was a curse. He had watched a wealthy merchant refuse a promising venture, purely because failing at it in public would have damaged his standing. The man was trapped by his own position. He had a name to protect, a reputation to maintain, and a fortune that made every risk feel enormous. He could not afford to look foolish. He could not afford to start over. The boy could. He had no reputation to protect, no position to defend, and nothing that a failure could take from him. He could try something, be wrong, and begin again the following week, and the city would not even notice. And he understood at last that having nothing is not only a weakness, it is a kind of freedom the powerful spend their whole lives losing. The invisible man can move quickly, fail cheaply, and start again as many times as it takes. So ask yourself honestly, how many hours did you throw away this week that no one was paying you for? And what have you not attempted because you were afraid of looking foolish? When in truth, almost no one is watching? The boy had found his hours and his freedom to move. But hours and freedom are only raw material. They are worth nothing until you trade them for something no one can take out of your hands. The boy went looking for a kind of property that could not be taken, and he found it in a small workshop near the river. There was a man there who worked a particular kind of glass. He was not wealthy by birth, and he had begun with less than nothing, but he had done something almost no one in Florence had the patience to do. He had chosen one thing and refused to be pulled away from it. While other men learned a little of everything and remained useful to no one in particular, this man had spent years narrowing rather than widening, sharpening a single ability until the city could not replace him. And because he could not be replaced, he did not have to ask for his price. He named it. Here is the third asset. The only property that cannot be stolen, burned, seized, or taken from you by any power on earth is the one that lives inside your head. A city can take your house. A ruler can take your land. A bad season can take your savings. But no one has ever confiscated a skill. And the rule the boy drew from it was this: choose one and sharpen it like a weapon. Not 5, not 10. One thing, pursued long enough and deeply enough that you cross the line from common to rare, because the market haggles over the common and pays whatever is asked for the rare. Most men never cross that line, not because they lack talent, but because they keep starting over in a new direction every year and remain forever ordinary in all of them. The fourth asset was the one that astonished the boy most, because it required not a single coin to build. He watched a young courier in Florence who owned nothing at all, but when he said he would arrive at midday, he arrived at midday. When he was given something to carry, it arrived untouched. He did not exaggerate, did not disappear, did not make excuses. Within a few years, merchants who would not lend a florin to their own cousins were placing valuable goods in that young man's hands without hesitation. He had built the only capital that can be created from absolute zero: trust. Reputation is credit that exists before any bank does. It opens doors that money cannot open, and it is the reason a man with empty pockets can be handed opportunities that wealthy strangers are refused. It costs nothing to begin building today, and it takes years to build and one afternoon to destroy, which is precisely why it is so valuable and why so few possess it. So ask yourself, is there one thing you are becoming genuinely rare at? Or are you still slightly useful at many things? And if someone were asked today whether you keep your word, what would they say without hesitating? The boy now held 4 assets: his hours, his freedom to move, a skill worth sharpening, and a name worth trusting. But holding them changes nothing. There is a movement that turns them into wealth, and almost no one makes it. The boy had his 4 assets, and for a long while, nothing happened. He had his hours, his freedom, a skill he was sharpening, and a name people were beginning to trust. But no wealth came from any of it. He was rare, reliable, and still poor. And it took him a long time to understand why. He was sharpening a blade in an empty field. There was no one there to need it. So he went looking for the men who had crossed from nothing into something, and he found that all of them had made the same 2 movements. Not clever ones, not lucky ones, two deliberate movements that almost no one makes. The first was position. They had placed themselves where money was already moving. Wealth does not appear evenly across a city. It gathers in certain rooms, where things are bought, sold, decided, and negotiated. And a man can spend his entire life 2 streets away from those rooms and never touch a coin of it. The men who rose had gone toward the flow. They took the humbler post inside the counting house rather than the better paid one far from it. They stood near the merchants, the negotiators, the ones who decided things, and they made themselves useful there. The boy thought of Machiavelli himself, who never held a fortune in his life, but who stood in the rooms where power was decided and whose access was worth more than any inheritance. Proximity is not a small advantage. It is often the whole difference between a rare skill that pays and a rare skill that starves. The second movement was the harder one, and it is where nearly everyone fails. When the first real money finally arrived, they did not spend it on their lives. They converted it into something they owned. The boy watched 2 men receive their first meaningful sum in the same season. The first bought a better cloak, better meals, a better room, and within a year, his life looked improved and his position was exactly the same. The second bought a tool, a small share, a thing that produced. His life looked identical to the year before, and he had quietly crossed a line the first man would never cross. The first money you ever earn is not a reward, it is seed. And a man who eats his seed returns to where he started with nothing but better memories of the year. So ask yourself plainly, are you near where money actually moves, or far from it and hoping it finds you? And the last time something extra came into your hands, did you convert it or did you consume it? The boy positioned himself and he planted rather than ate. Slowly something began to grow. And it was precisely then, at the very beginning of having something, that he watched almost everyone around him destroy what they had just started to build. The boy noticed something cruel about Florence. It was not the beginning that destroyed men who came from nothing. It was the moment just after the beginning. The fragile season when a man finally has a little and has not yet learned how to hold it. He watched 4 traps take nearly everyone. The first was haste. Men who had waited their whole lives to begin could not bear that building was slow. They wanted in 1 year what honestly takes 7, and when the first year passed without transformation, they declared the whole thing broken and abandoned it. The boy understood that the arithmetic of building from nothing is brutally simple. The early years produce almost nothing visible. Everything is happening underground. Quitting in year 2 is not bad luck. It is quitting precisely when the roots were forming. The second trap grew directly out of the first. When a man cannot endure the slow road, he becomes willing to believe in a fast one. Florence was full of schemes for such men, ventures promising in a month what patience gives in a decade, offered by smiling strangers to people desperate enough to stop asking questions. The boy noticed that these schemes never found the wealthy. They hunted the impatient poor, because impatience is the easiest thing in the world to sell to. The third trap was the first sum spent. A man with nothing gets a little and immediately buys the appearance of having more, better clothes, a better table, something the neighbors can see. It is the most human thing imaginable. After years of being invisible, being seen feels like winning, but it converts the seed into a costume, and a costume produces nothing at all. The fourth was borrowing to look established. Some men, wanting to appear further along than they were, took loans to build the image of a position they had not yet reached. And they discovered too late what the boy already knew. A man with no cushion cannot survive a single bad season. The wealthy borrow against a foundation. A man starting from nothing borrows against his own throat. And here is the hard truth beneath all 4. The man who begins with nothing must be more disciplined than the wealthy man, not less. This is unfair, and it is true. A rich man can waste a year, make a foolish purchase, take a bad risk, and remain rich. You have no such margin. Your mistakes cost you everything because you have nothing behind you to absorb them. So ask yourself, honestly, which of those four is most likely to be yours? Haste, the shortcut, the first sum spent on being seen, or borrowing to look further along than you are? Name it now, before it arrives, because it will arrive, and it always comes disguised as something reasonable. The boy avoided them mostly, and the little he had began slowly to become something. Which brings us to the last thing, the one that decides whether any of this becomes wealth, or merely a long and disciplined life of effort. Years later, the boy understood that the sentence he had heard as a child was not merely wrong, it was backwards. First, you must have money to make money. No, first you must recognize that you were never empty-handed. The men of Florence who died poor did not die because they lacked capital. They died because they spent their whole lives waiting for capital, while holding for things they never once thought to count. You have hours, the only wealth handed out equally, that no ruler can seize and no fortune can buy back. You have freedom to move, because a man with nothing to protect can try, fail cheaply, and begin again while the powerful stand frozen, guarding what they have. You have the capacity to become rare, sharpening one thing rather than remaining slightly useful at many. And you have the ability to be trusted, which costs nothing to begin and opens doors that money cannot open. Those four are the raw material, and the sequence that turns them into wealth is not complicated. Invest a few hours before you sell the rest. Choose one skill and sharpen it until you cannot be easily replaced. Become the kind of person whose word needs no verification. Move toward the rooms where money already flows and make yourself useful there. And when the first real sum finally arrives, do not eat the seed. Convert it into something you own, and then do it again and again without interruption through the slow years when nothing appears to be happening. That is the entire road. It is not fast. It was never fast for anyone. The boy did not become wealthy because he found a secret. He became wealthy because he stopped waiting for a beginning that was never coming and started with the only things he actually had. And in truth, what he built mattered less than what he became while building it, because the man who can create something from nothing is never truly poor again, whatever happens to his coins. So be honest with yourself one last time. You have been told that you cannot start because you have nothing, but you have hours you are throwing away, a freedom to fail that the wealthy would envy, one thing you could become rare at, and a name you could make worth trusting. Starting tonight, without a single coin, most people will hear all of this and go on waiting for the better job, the extra money, the season when things finally settle. They will wait exactly as the men in the taverns waited, and they will be there still, saying the same sentence 20 years from now. A few will take inventory tonight. The boy could not tell you which you will be. Only you can. If you intend to be one of the few, then follow this boy, because every fable here teaches the one thing no one else will: how the world of money actually works. The next lesson is already waiting.